I'm here to show you my journey with trash and where I am and how it has influenced the work that I do now. But before I start, can I get you all just to put down your phones for 1 second and look at your hands? You can pick your phones up later, but now just look at your hands and think about what your hands have done for you, how you have used them, and what you'd like your hands to do for you. Okay? Just a little thing, just ponder that. Thanks so much. Now, I'm going to begin my little journey when I was 7 years old in primary school, Bukit Bintang Girls' School. And we had a blast playing around the school compound every recess for 20 minutes in between lessons, right? And then when the bell would ring, we would all line up and then we would go back to our classrooms. But one day, our headmistress, Mrs. Sue, kind of changed things a bit. And she said, okay, this time before you go up to your classrooms, the two classes, we're going to take turns. Each class is going to stay back for 10 minutes and clean up the school compound. And then we looked around and we had made such a mess of the school compound. And we had been doing this for weeks. Because every time we go to the school canteen, we'll buy our fish stick satay or our muruku in packets. And we'd be no time to sit down. We'd be running and playing. And as we were running around, we would throw the rubbish on the floor. So we had to do this. And of course, even as little kids, we were quite no, I don't like to do this, but I have to do this, but I don't like to do this. But we did it with a lot of grumbling. We were not very thinking very nice thoughts about Mrs. Sue, and we were complaining amongst each other, saying, hey, this is the sweeper's job. Now, the school sweeper is paid to do this. Why are we doing this? But never mind, we did it. When it came to our second time round for our class to do it, we stopped complaining about Mrs. Sue and the school cleaner, but we started blaming each other. I saw you playing hopscotch just now, you threw the satay stick. That kind of thing. We didn't own it yet. We were blaming each other, right? But we had to clean up and clean up. The third time round, we were like, oh man, we still have to do this. Okay, this time we just said, if they were all feeling the way I was feeling, it was, I just want to get this done and never do it again. And I began to own it, and I cleaned. And we helped each other. Dad, come, I did for you. And we helped each other. There was a little bit more collaboration. There was no more chatter noise. We just got stuck in and did it. And we thought that was it. We had to do it the fourth time. The fourth time, we're like, but you know what? This time we made a game of it. We're going to do better than class A. They took 7 minutes out. We're going to do quicker. So we started to enjoy it, and we did it so quick. And you know one reason why we did it so quick? Because from that third time, we started throwing so much less that there was hardly anything to pick up, right? And we were picking up dead leaves and all that, and the compound was spotless. So this stuck with me, and I think it stuck with a lot of my classmates and probably that whole school for our whole lives. And we're all a bit more like litter prefects now, when we catch people out when they throw cigarette butts. But anyways, it stuck with me, more so because in the later life I realized when I reflected back that it was the practice of repeating. If you want to get a message ingrained into you and embedded, you have to repeat it, like playing the piano, doing your math problems, you have to repeat it. There has to be a mindfulness to it, and it takes time for you to get that mindfulness. But you have to own it. And you have to say, it's not his problem, it's not his problem, it's our problem, let's just do it. And this is something that I appreciate and I use in our campaign work, and I'll show you a bit later. Later on, when we were going to holidays with my family, this is another relationship I have with trash. We go to the beaches and there'll be all this trash littered, and it's like mind-boggling, right? How some people just have their picnic, get up and walk away, and everything is left behind. Most of this is not washed up from some other beach or ocean. This is probably mostly left. So what me and my husband, my kids would do is we just collect it, but we try to have fun with it and kind of make sense of it. And we would do these sort of beach trash installations, completely meaningless to some, but I think in the process of doing it, what we ourselves were learning from was sorting, trying to find order, trying to make sense, trying to make it beautiful and not so ugly. right? So that's something that also stayed with me. I always used to think, why did we do that for? But I think the idea also is that if people did see it, they would start seeing trash differently. And I was hoping that if they start to see trash differently, they would appreciate it and respect it a bit more and be less careless about it. Yeah. And so when my own making at home, in my own supply of trash that my house generated, I would faithfully put aside for recycling, and in those days there weren't very many recycling chains because you needed to have a recycling stream. Not everybody took the certain type of plastic that we were producing. And I would wash it, clean it, sort it, and when there was enough of it, I would try and find something to do with it. And this is ironing meditations, I call them, where I would iron and fuse plastic bags together and make a bigger bag, and hopefully a tougher bag that won't fall apart. And that was my idea, trying to find use for material before it ended up in the landfill, giving it a second life. Yeah, this one was the Yakult pots that my children like to drink a lot of. And that's probably like a year's collection worth of Yakult pots. So instead of throwing them away every day, I tried to make something a little bit more interesting about them. And so that's my making happened, and I would use things that I had at home and try and make thought-provoking objects out of them, useful. This is an egg basket. An egg basket I made and wove, and I put in Baskin-Robbins ice cream spoons there. And the idea was that to challenge myself to use these materials in a way that people would hopefully appreciate the material of, as alternative materials to craft or art making. You didn't have to go to the shop to buy all this material, brand new material. The material was around you. You just had to be a little bit resourceful. But more importantly, what I was getting out of this, is happening over time, was that by using my hands, sometimes it was very frustrating. Sometimes I go, why am I doing this? Why do I need to find ways to use up this rubbish? But also, just equally, there were times which were, wow, this is exciting. Wow, I solved that problem. Oh man, I didn't know I could do that. Those moments of self-discovery, which we are so lacking these days because we have outsourced almost everything to consumer products. We buy our own clothes. We buy our food. Not many do have the time for cooking or find the time for cooking. We buy furniture. We buy our houses. All these things that previously, in generations before us, craftsmen were there and made, and there was a stronger sense of ownership. And people who make their own stuff, it turns out, are great problem solvers, yeah? Because they actually had to figure things out. And that was something that we were losing. And I tried to think, as I was making these objects, and I call them meditations, I was thinking, and when I get into that meditative zone, this reflective zone, I would wonder whether that was why we are so disrespectful to our environment and nature, because we've just completely lost connection. We are so disconnected from the sense of materials, from the value of materials, from how long they last. The stuff that we buy now, we have no idea how long they last, really. Who would have thought that a plastic bag would last 400 years, for instance? They're not really disposable. So I started to teach, because making this stuff on its own was kind of like a little private hobby. I would display it in exhibitions, and I would get feedback, and people would say, oh, make some more, but that wasn't my point. I didn't want to make more for the sake of making more. I wanted to try and somehow influence people, inspire people to see this material as something that needed to be noticed and needed to be used before being chucked into the landfill. So I decided to teach. And in my teaching, and I'm not a trained teacher in any way, I taught refugee children creative crafting, upcycling. So again, I taught them the skills. And I felt that if I gave them the basic skills of making, they would feel the euphoria that I would feel. They would feel pride in what they did. They could be creative without having to spend money buying stuff from the art supply stores. It was all there for them. They could get on with it quickly and make and get the benefits out of using their hands with it. And in this teaching, I had to do things like lesson plans and understand pedagogies. And in my research for all this, I discovered, that I hadn't known, that what I had just been telling you, or some of what I had just been telling you, and I had been experiencing myself, the hand-brain connection had been validated by scientists and neuroscientists and psychologists. The hand-brain connection is amazing. Our brain, neuroscientists have found about 60 years ago that our brain dedicates a lot of it to controlling our hands. Meaning our hands are not just for lifting and moving, or for censoring and telling our brain, oh, hot, cold, what. It's more than that. Our hands are like our second brain. We make decisions with our hands. We change our minds using our hands. It's more than just it's more than just a tool, right? It's a thinking tool. And by using our hands in whatever we do, whatever learning we have, it embeds deeper in us, right? And it stays, and it hardwires into us better. And I was thinking, wow, this is really good stuff. No wonder I feel so good when I'm making. No wonder there are some people who love cooking, right? And because it's that creative bit, you know, you might be tired and all. No wonder there are people who love crafting and sewing. We just needed more of that. And as I said earlier, we have outsourced so much that we don't do that, and we don't hardly use our hands anymore for pleasurable making. Part of the research that scientists have come up with as well is that apart from it being a kind of therapy, is that it's a primal need to make. Our ancestors have been making for thousands and thousands of years, and it all had to be practical stuff because that's what they needed. And then it got to time when the need to make was separated and became art, and then it became practical, craft, and then art. But the basics are the same. We make to feel good, to feel validated, to feel necessary, to feel pleasure. And when we outsource that, and we deny ourselves the ability to feel that, I think that is where a big disconnect in how we view ourselves within our environment happens. And because I'm so focused about trash, I was trying to think that maybe that is one possible reason why we don't care. So some of us seem not to care about the state of our environment and the state about pollution, plastic pollution, and litter. So teaching then also was one step further, but I thought if I could reach even more, we set up a group, as you mentioned earlier, Sampah Menyampah Citizens Action Initiative. We wanted to spread awareness about litter and plastic pollution. We wanted to empower Malaysians to, you know, take back stewardship of our environment and love it again. We wanted to collect all the individuals and all the groups that were already doing this in whatever way and capacity they could, and we wanted to make them more visible. You know, really gather all these ripples and be the big seventh wave of citizens' power. These was our big manifesto, right? And this is our basic tool. We started off with our first campaign, as mentioned, Tak Nak Straw. Tak Nak Straw means no straw please. It's a direct template adopted from all the other no straw movements around the world, especially the Last Straw Project or One Straw Less. It's very simple. You've got we tell the story of the journey of the plastic straw, which is to tell Malaysian kids and people, you know, 20 minutes on the lips, but it lasts forever in landfills and tips. We tell them that 31 million straws are thrown out in Malaysia every day. We got to, hey, everybody here, we have to heads up a bit about this because we all play a part. And it's just this poster, which is a story, one other poster, which is the pledge, and that was our tools. That's all we had. Of course, we had social media, and we had tried to, wherever anybody invited us for free, we would ever get a free table, we tried to be there. We were like between 3 to 5 people, and not all active at one go because we're all mothers and we have day jobs. Me being the most free one, I was probably the most visible, but that's fun. But we would just tell the story simply, and we would say to people, hey, it's the first step is just to say no, sow seeds. We try to empower them, and we say, look, you just sow seeds. Do that whole repetition thing that Mrs. Sue taught us when I was young. It's like, just keep saying, every time you're in a restaurant or in a cafe, just be mindful and say, no straws, please. If you really need a straw, bring your own. I've got my own straw. You can wave it at the waiter. I have my own straw. No straws, please. Little simple things like that. So we were applying what I had felt and intuited that we needed to repeat, we needed to practice, and when being mindful, and we also needed to sow seeds so that the environment that we would be moving into would be familiar with what we were requesting and would help us and support us in making that change, and also we would be educating and supporting them in making that change. So not only were we telling people who are keen about the Thought Not Straw movement and adopting it, we were saying that you guys are the teachers, you guys are the movers, you know, not just one face or two faces. It's you can do it by little baby steps, 3 words at a time. Thought Not Straw. Fails, it's okay, try again. Thought Not Straw. Don't worry, these words are out there and they're sowing and they're growing. This is the other one. This is the other panel that we have, the second panel of our thing, and it's the 5 steps. And the last step being, if you can, try and get your favorite restaurant to not serve straws at all. Very simple. So much energy and focus put on one small, innocuous little plastic single-use disposal item, which can sadly wreak so much havoc in the environment. Big part of our campaign work, even though that was our only 2 print material, is workshops. Taking from my experiences of making with your hands, we decided that this campaign, Sampah Menyampah, is also going to do our awareness work via workshops as much as possible. We wanted to give people the opportunity to use their hands so that, not just to embed our message better, so they wouldn't forget it, but have possibly those little short eureka moments in that 5-minute or 10-minute workshop going, yeah, I can do this, yeah. And maybe that's something that they would carry them within their lives and in their habits of consumption. So we have the paper straws here, wax paper straws. Also in our campaign, there was no alternatives. So we were showing people how you can find and make your own alternatives. You need not buy everything. You do not have to outsource. You can do it yourself with very simple materials. And not just paper straws, we also work, this is how we work with kids' paper straws. We're very kind of like guerrilla. Any space we can, we will just come and do, and we'll muscle our way in if we have to. We got bamboo straws going as well. And this is where it's also a handcrafted thing, which I appreciate. Last year when we started this movement, there were no straw alternatives possible, except stainless steel straws, which are being brought in from China, and nobody was producing bamboo straws here locally, and we felt, hey, we grow bamboo, somebody here must be able to do it. So we approached some orang asli, and they were willing to try, even though they had no real understanding of straws because they don't use them. So, you know, but we worked at it, and over the months and years we figured it out. So I use this as part of the workshops as well, where we give people a bamboo straw and sandpaper and say, here, have a go at making it beautiful. You sand it down. It takes 5-10 minutes, but people begin to appreciate the work that is involved in an object, and hopefully then they have the appreciation of that object, and they won't simply just discard it or lose it too easily. And then, I'm going to end with this picture. So, can anybody guess what this is? This is a picture of an otter in a plastic bag, floating off the shores of Langkawi. And I think this as the poster child of Malaysia, equitable to the turtle with the straw of its nose from Costa Rica, which started and helped push the no straw movement to begin with. This picture to me is Malaysian. We have to own it. When I look at it, I wonder who owned that plastic bag, what was carried in it, why was it discarded so easily, and how can we stop it? So I end with this because I want this horrible image in your mind. I'm sorry, but I hope it will stick and make you think about it. But I'm going to sum up by saying, whatever we do in life and the changes we want to make, try using your hands. Practice, practice, practice in little incremental baby steps. Try using your hands, even if you're studying, do something with your hands. I think that's why guys like to spin the pens, because all this helps with our learning and embeds deeper in us. And try using your hands more so that we will all become more mindful and have a calm sense of well-being. So hopefully we will have more energy and mind space and heart space for the person next to us, for the stranger next to us, and also for our environment. so that we can be more mindful about the amount of trash that we generate, and yeah, use your hands. Look at them differently now, okay? Thank you very much.